Hello again, this is Sam Houston, and welcome to my front porch. Please, let me hear a solution. Please. When the election season comes into view, a part of me feels despair. In my youth, I was involved in politics on a local and state level, and it was an interesting and informative experience. The pervasive feeling at the time was that political debate enriched, informed, and broadened the knowledge of the electorate. The conversations, while vigorous, were based on facts and political objectives that would arguably make life better for the masses. When parties disagreed, there were basic facts which both sides in an issue accepted, and the disagreement was more about implementation of a solution and how to pay for it, rather than whether an issue existed. Perhaps this is largely true because candidates understood they needed to be factual, or else voters would abandon them. There was no room for misstating facts or numbers. Such is no longer the case. It would seem many voters do not care about facts. What's important to them is what they hear regurgitated by their favorite politician, and if the information feeds into their fears and apprehensions. Then all is well. It would seem that instead of elevated political discussions about how to best serve the voters, there are candidates and citizens who merely want to speak loudly, all the while having very little to say. Their positions are not evidence-based, they're agenda-based. Facts matter little. Solving problems appear to be even less important. Their political action formula would seem to be to make an allegation which stirs emotion and then sit back and watch the electorate react. There's a true shortage of fresh ideas coming from our candidates. Solutions have been replaced by candidates who advance complaints about what's wrong, but offer no solutions. They point at someone to blame using objectives like the good old boys or the establishment, often without substantial supportive evidence to justify their allegations. Where's dynamic leadership to provide a new insight into an old problem? Where's the vision of what path we should take to better serve our community? Instead of leadership and direction, we get candidates who tell us to stand up and fight, let your voice be heard, don't place tax burdens on your kids, and other jingoistic slogans which do little to solve a problem. Unfortunately, they do appeal to the masses, but seldom, if ever, lead to solutions. Not long ago, I witnessed a person in a community who fought hard against the building of a new sewer plant. Generally, there was no disagreement about the need for an additional sewer plant. This person simply didn't want the sewer plant built near their house. They alleged it would contaminate the groundwater, would cause massive infestation of vermin and insects, would destroy the quality of life, and most importantly, would destroy property values for all those who live near the proposed site. Owning a house in another part of town which is adjacent to a sewer pump and water discharge station, I found the charges dubious at best. This person spent the better part of a year appearing repeatedly at the Commissioner's Court, City Council meetings, and wherever else they could find a forum. The person had every right to voice an opinion. However, the tangible evidence to support their argument was nearly void. There was never a suggestion by the complainant of what was to be done to address the problems of inadequate sewer services, just complaints. And those complaints were largely factually unsupported. It's interesting to note that the person I'm referring to no longer lives in the community. The property, which was going to be devalued significantly by the sewer plant, was sold on the open market for considerable profit from what had originally been paid just a few short years before. A person might question if during the sales process the seller informed the potential buyer about their concerns of the property value dropping and their associated fears of problems once the sewer plant construction began. In the meantime, in part because of this homeowner and the people that their actions inspired, permitting to the new sewer plant was delayed while interest rates and construction costs grew dramatically. The sewer plant has now been approved by the state. The delay will end up costing taxpayers millions of dollars, and all for no good reason. Certainly, if you have a complaint about a city councilman, a commissioner, or a school board member, or a policy they represent, raise your voice, but do so with a proposed solution and with facts. To do otherwise is simply whining. Use those facts to convince others rather than emotional pleas about burdening future generations with taxes. Certainly we should be concerned about future generations, which is why we need to have the best community and best schools we can afford. To do less is to create a disadvantage for our youth, from which they will likely never overcome. That is the burden on the next generation we need to avoid. Support candidates who have a plan for success, not just to complain about the present. Thought for the day. Planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. Alan Lakin. Until next time, I'll keep riding the storm out.
You've been listening to From My Front Porch with Sam Houston, brought to you by the Granbury Theater Company. You can catch Sam's column every week in the print edition of the Hood County News or online at hcnews.com.